What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Visual Effects Artists React. We are looking at some Harry Potter today. We're gonna jump around in some jump.
Yes, we are.
Jumper. And Niko is bringing some incredible history today.
God, this is legitimately blowing my mind. I had no idea.
I didn't
about
either.
this.
I didn't know this existed, but like they showed it to Dennis Muir and he's like, this would be impossible to program into a motion control machine.
This honestly is changing my perspective on the history of CGI as we watch this.
So recently, my wife and I have taken the journey of rewatching all the Harry Potters leading up to Christmas here. You know, a lot of the stuff doesn't hold up. Granted, it's very early 2000s, so we forgive it. But there are, I mean, you guys did a full-on Harry Potter dedicated React episode.
Oh, and we did a whole second one too.
And we covered like 4%.
Oh, because I was gonna say,
We promised
the
it.
promise, 3 years ago, the promise was made on this couch.
3 years?
The promise was made on this couch to do a second Harry Potter React based on comments that people left. And so while this is not a dedicated Harry Potter React, I wanted to at least bring some of those clips.
All right.
Now that said, we will do another Harry Potter React. A promise isn't broken until the people who promised gave up. Have you guys given up?
We're still running the show, aren't we?
Yeah.
It could still happen.
Between Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix, Sirius Black appears in the flames of the fire.
That's gotta be so hot.
Both times he appears in two different movies, they handle the VFX very differently. I want to get your guys' opinions.
I know exactly what you mean.
I do like this effect. It feels very real. Like this is interesting because like nothing about it feels not real.
Yeah, right?
The only thing I've ever really noticed is that it kind of just looks like his pupils are just like. So, okay, but we are looking at what looks to be a real plate. Like the sides, those look to be real. They're probably not real coals. It's probably set dressing.
And what about the face itself?
I think it's an actual like 3D model that's been animated based off of his face and his performance. But I think it's an actual render.
Yeah, the vast majority of what we're looking at is full CG. Pretty much all of it has been fully replaced.
Interesting, because it looks like there's a very clear like mask where like the embers and whatnot kind of shift underneath the other logs. So you're saying all of that burnt wood there is CG?
Pretty much the entire bed is CG. And the face itself, Gary Oldman did his performance with tracking marks on the face. They reconstructed the face in 3D. They basically just like caked him in dynamic wood pieces. And I do believe that there is also a certain level of compositing in his performance footage too.
Really?
I do. Specifically in the eyes and the nose, the contrast there. I believe they did some sort of filtering on that footage to layer it in. And it's just Gary, dude.
Gary.
Look at the range.
Look like he's in a British like sitcom.
A 1970s stage play.
It just looks so bizarre with the pupils standing out so clearly like that.
Very
Because you
nice.
really need that contrast for the details of the face.
I do feel like you could do this these days pretty quickly by using like Lockdown and After Effects. Like just get like a wood texture on somebody's face using like an AI style transfer or literally just like putting stuff on it, you know, grabbing patches of bark. And then you can use Lockdown and you can still do the physics sims around it with a much simpler face model that's like tracked automatically.
But I know it's not what it says in the book. His face appears in the flames. What do you do when there's no flames though? I mean, granted, they could have had the fire, right? But there's not a fire, it's coals. So this is kind of a fun, unique way of showing it. And I really like the aesthetic.
What if because there's not much fire, he had to come out of the coals? What if next time there is enough fire so he doesn't have to coal it up?
In Order of the Phoenix, we do have that fire. And whether it's because there's fire or because they heard people say that's not what it did in the book, or because there's a new director, I don't know, they decided to actually do it how it said in the book.
What are you doing here? Answering your letter. You said you were worried about Umbridge. What's she doing?
You know?
Yeah, no, not as good.
I think for me, it's just very clearly a Luma mask type situation where basically wherever the fire is brightest is where another image is going to show up. And that image is just his face. So his face is not going to be there if there's no fire.
And then they're probably using the brightness of the flame to inform some sort of displacement or distortion so the face ripples and moves with
Yeah,
the
you're right, it
flames.
is rippling. Technically speaking, this is a well done effect.
Yeah, and this might be actually like what J.K. Rowling had in her mind when she was designing. It's like, oh, it's like a projector on like a waterfall or smoke. You know, we kind of see the image, but it's not as interesting as like a face going, blah, 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 hi.
But then when we just come back to it, it's just like, it's kind of silly.
It is way
silly.
sillier.
It's just silly. It's just like,
It feels like, for those of you who have been on it, the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, they project onto the mist a face that is talking to you. But it's like, you know what it is, just a projection. And it's like, in these movies, what I love is the escapism of the magic. And it's like, I want to see unique visuals that I've never seen. And I've never seen a face, you know, coughing its way out of the coals and having a little chat. I'm personally happy straying from the book if what you are showing in the movie is a better visualization for the medium. Next up, we have a request also from the comments to take a look at the fixing up of Horace Slughorn's house.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Merlin's beard!
Whoa.
I love that rip reveal and how it turns, how the rip turns into a puffy collar. It's so great, it's so creative.
I love the sound design too. It's like the ka-ching,
The springs.
ka-ching.
So that's gotta be CG. You can tell by the wrinkles.
What about the wrinkles?
CG cloth has thicker wrinkles than real life wrinkles. Also, like the way your clothes are stitched affect how the wrinkles fall and whether where they tightly pinch and where they're more loosely rolled and the directions they get pulled. And just CG doesn't quite have that. At least not back then. Maybe now if you got really detailed, but like just the way those wrinkles are kind of like big and on the arm there.
He's probably wearing this outfit. This is the real robe he's probably wearing through that entire thing when he's like, Merlin's beard. But it was all replaced with a CG robe. You can kind of see it's still kind of baggy there above the little waistband. But then it cuts and then it comes back to him and it's clearly now a different robe.
Tied up nice and tight.
It's nice and clean.
Yep, the entire outfit there is full siege. And there is a transition taking place back to the original pajamas on the left arm there, right there. Back to the original
Oh,
sleeve.
interesting.
But they're hiding it in the motion really, really nicely. But everything else doesn't have a large enough motion really to transition back, so they're using the cutaway to hide the rest. But what's cool is the little nuance of him actually standing up into this performance. They basically have just a little rig that's like a little catapult chair, and they just bump him up from a sitting position into a standing, and then he does his full-on, performance, shaking it off and whatnot, and they match move to that, and then do all the cloth simulation on top. Using pressure, obviously, to fill it out like an armchair, and having it deflate over time. But again, blending the somewhat intricate pattern of these pajamas on the left arm so seamlessly is a real win. So this is our introduction to this character, but then his mucky house gets cleaned up in a beautiful way. Yeah, this is a fun shot. I love it.
Oh yeah, the chandelier. Because this is more than just like destruction simulation in reverse. There's a lot of intentional animation in how stuff like this breaks.
Like the way the chandelier screws into the wall. It brings life to everything.
And it looked like the chandelier dangly bits were actually reacting to the physics of it actually screwing into place. So everything's getting like rewound back up into place. But if they just did that as like a destruction simulation, you wouldn't be able to reanimate that stuff. So it's like as they're back in and it's screwing in, they're actually dangling in response to that.
You almost need to animate it in reverse too. But that destruction of the chandelier, we start on the pieces and are following the pieces up. Now, do we see those pieces actually reach the chandelier?
I think they probably just cut them out and move them to where they need to go.
So that could be its own second separate simulation.
The end of this shot, when it goes in towards the bookcase with the record player there, that looks almost full siege to me.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I love that little beat.
It's so satisfying when it goes in there, it's like, shunk.
It's really nice, and the vast majority of what we're seeing being repaired is all CG. Yeah, super fun.
Calcio Returno! Jordanalius Returnus! Come on! Oh, my illusion spell wore off. Dang it. I accidentally turned Jordan into a couch, and I don't know how to turn him back. However, I've been studying the tomes of today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to build the perfect website for you or your business. It's so good, it's like magic. Designus Intelligentium! Squarespace's design intelligence is like having Hermione in your corner. It combines expertise with AI to create a perfectly personalized website. And with Squarespace payments, managing transactions is a breeze. From Apple Pay to Klarna, they make it seamless for everyone, and hopefully for this transformation too. Payamentium Simplicium! Okay, this has gotta work. Squarespace templates are like the room of requirement, completely customizable and perfect for any purpose. If it can handle that, surely it can handle turning this couch back into Jordan. All right, Flexibilis Templatus! Oh, I'm
a person! Yes! I'm a person! No, Ren, please send me back!
What?
I liked being a couch, it was simpler! Life is so complex! Send me back!
Oh boy, okay, I think I gotta put the illusion spell back up to deal with this, but in the meantime, head to squarespace.com/corridorcrew to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Okay, VFX this, react this!
But, of course, if we're talking about Harry Potter, one of the most important visual effects in the entire 8-movie franchise is making Hagrid feel big.
Right.
This was not one of the comments that I saw, but this is just something that has always appealed to me. Hagrid is supposed to be 8'6". How the heck do you pull that off?
Thought you were leaving without saying goodbye, did you?
All right, so here you got your classic over-the-shoulder cinematography language. So you go over the shoulder of a big person who's perhaps standing on a platform looking down at Harry Potter. Next shot, you look up at a person from over the shoulder of Harry Potter. You're gonna assume that that's the person you were just looking over the shoulder of. But in reality, that person could be 3 feet tall. You wouldn't be able to tell. You're also looking up, so it implies that they're taller than you.
Why would Snape put a curse on Harry's brew?
That's probably a comp shot.
They're kids, so they're not that tall. He looks like he's just a normal-sized dude, and they're like, they're kids, we can get away with it.
Easiest way to do this shot. Camera's on a tripod. You have Hagrid walk through. You do the shot where he's just by himself. Then you have the kids do the shot afterwards. And maybe do a shot with all the actors just to practice. Just take your Hagrid, you can scale him up. Camera's still, you can easily comp it all together. You can even keep a shadow from the previous shot. The end.
Yeah, I was about to say, Robbie Coltrane probably just has like some big shoes. That's probably giving him a little bit of height, but like, still though, those kids are like what? They're supposed to be 11 years old. Hagrid doesn't look to be twice the height of an 11-year-old.
They did pretty much every trick you could think of to make Hagrid taller, right? They have the wide-angle lenses, they have the low-angle shots, they have the forced perspective where they pull the background talent and items away from Hagrid in order to make them appear smaller in frame. And when all else fails, they just old-school composite. Green screen, blue screen footage, and just slot them on in there. But then there's this shot here.
Harry.
Ooh, let me say that again. Let me say that
Yeah,
again.
it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
I think it's a head replacement. I think that's a real big thing, costume, person, whatever, combination.
That's what I thought first too, but the hands. Look at the hand on the left, screen left.
Are those CG? Those are CG hands.
And they
See
kinda
that?
like, you're right.
The
'cause,
guiding his
he
hand.
slips out and he goes like, burp.
Like he could,
Those are CG hands. We are forgetting a very critical part. The first half of the shot here, there's something that's real that's that big on set.
but I mean, Ren, you kind of highlighted the biggest thing here. The elephant in the room, so to speak. One of the strongest pieces of this magic trick, and one that they used for all the over-the-shoulders, a ton of the wides, and a lot of other shots throughout the entire series, was the giant Hagrid suit that they built, and it is so stinking cool.
I volunteered the suggestion that for shots of his back and shots on the kids where you were only halfway up Hagrid's body could be done with a double.
You are getting into production, and you have a goal. You need to make a man who is 8'6". Of course, no one on Earth right now is 8'6", so no one can foot that bill. But they did come into contact with someone called Martin Bayfield, who used to play on the England rugby team. He's 6'10". And what's cool about Martin Bayfield is he is very proportionate, because the elbows need to be where the elbows are and the knees need to be where the knees are. The proportions need to match. So you can't lift him, is what I'm saying. You can't lift him so high up that his arms look short.
Sure, yeah.
And his
I see what you're
proportions
saying.
start to get
You're talking
thrown.
about like the forced perspective type stuff. It's like, well,
You can push it so far and then it starts to fall apart. So the tallest they could actually get him to was 7'6", while still maintaining the proportions. And so for everything that we see Hagrid in, where he's, giant and hugging people, he's actually a foot shorter than he should technically be.
Really?
interesting.
Yeah, but I think it works just fine. And look at that freaking headpiece, dude.
Wait,
Wow.
Look at
they
the
actually
headpiece.
made a whole face for him.
They made what is called a dead head, which is the
dead
best
head.
name for it, honestly. But a dead head is basically just a giant lifelike mask that has no animatronics or anything in it. It's just basically meant to look like the actor. Like when you freeze on it,
That
you
is really good.
Isn't it amazing?
That is really good.
And these are the stilt lifts that they gave them. Because they couldn't obviously do full stilts. They just gave him literally a booster in his boots. The full body's got the prosthetic gloves on, the little sausage wrappers. The first version of this mask on the first movie was such a success, and they found so much utility in it that they're like, you know what, let's elevate this thing for the second movie. And they added a bunch of animatronics to the head. No longer a dead head, it's fully alive now. So the eyes could move, it could smile. It's the creepiest smile I've ever seen. It's amazing. I love that smile, dude. Martin is very much a major part of the Hagrid performance. Because if you think about it, even though we're seeing him in a wide and we're seeing him from behind, the mannerisms still need to match, right? Still need to feel like he's moving like Hagrid, walking like Hagrid. And so Martin, who came from the world of rugby, had to really watch Robbie and emulate his motion and his little mannerisms and his twitches and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. Like, you don't even think about it when you're watching the movie. But yeah, Hagrid, I mean, there's so much magic hidden in how they're curating this performance of Hagrid and hiding it for 8 movies straight. And that giant suit is just a testament to how good that special effects team was.
Dear quarterdigital.com subscribers,
I hate you all.
He talks bad about you guys a lot.
You know what really pisses Wren off is to sign up for more subscriptions to our website.
it would piss me off so much if you subscribe.
Subscribe even more.
He hates it when you take your parents' credit card and use it over and over and over again to sign up to Corridor Digital.
Yep.
Would you guys like to see the first attempt at photoreal CG to replace models?
I would
Whoa, wait.
love to.
Hold up, what?
Now face it, Alex. You're a born starfighter.
This is one of the most requested clips for us to look at, which we have not looked at until now. The Last Starfighter, hot in the heels of Star Wars. Things are popping in the world of space, sci-fi, action. CGI, barely a thing. Tron has come out 2 years before this film. Tron is like the first time people have committed sequences that are rendered on a computer to film. And then The Last Starfighter comes out.
I mean, okay.
Whoa.
Okay.
Let's go, ambition.
So I think it's safe to say that maybe does not hold up. No. Not hold up as good
It
as
doesn't
a model.
hold up,
I mean-
but this is in 1984. This is literally 40 years ago.
He's gonna death blossom.
Oh, let's go!
Wow!
I love so much that inside the cockpit it also spins even more. It's like
Yeah.
he's not just spinning; it's also
Or
spinning.
maybe it's
him.
neutralizing it, so he's actually sitting still. The journey's nuts. So this is in the day where if you want a nice computer, you go out and you buy a piece of furniture called the computer. And so this is like a C-shaped tower with like benches on the side of it that you could nap on while you waited for your renders to come out. So they bought a Cray mainframe, basically wrote the software live while they made the movie.
That's crazy.
They had a guy who could draw the spaceship as a draftsman. We could draw it from the top, front, and side to equal proportions with the exact placement of all the panels.
What would bring those drawings, those 2D representations, into the 3D world?
So you'd have a digitizer, it was called, where basically you look at your top down, like, okay, here's a point for this corner. You go through and you place all your points. Then you'd want there to be a polygon point
And it would
on a
replicate
vertex.
that point in 3D space,
On the
basically
XY,
giving
yeah.
you a connect the
Not in
dots
3D
of
space,
your...
in 2D space. You do the same thing from the side. Here's the point from this corner. Because you got it from the side and the top, you
would
would get 3
triangulate.
coordinates. And that would give you the 3D coordinates.
Interesting.
So you'd basically have a front, side, and top drawing.
Your orthographic perspectives.
Yes. So you're literally filling in your X, Y, and Z values for each coordinate by hand.
Interesting.
Which is like thousands, tens of thousands of polygons.
I was about to say, those
Yeah.
ships are very highly detailed.
Well, that was the thing. That's what they were all into. Is
Well,
like,
like, how are
yeah, they're like, let's not use models. Let's just go crazy digitizing a ship.
That's the thing. It's the same patience that the saints who do stop motion have. It's a different level of patience and zen that we can only hope to aspire to, okay?
I mean, there weren't JPEGs. There wasn't a way to store an image on a
stressed.
computer. There wasn't a
so
way to do
stressed.
that at all. Images didn't exist. We had- So how are you going to look at your 3D animations? So that's where they turned to vectors, which became the term wireframe. All the values of the ship were on physical knobs. Like you could turn the ship, you could scale the ship, you could translate it X and Y, you could translate it Z, literally on physical knobs. That's
like
how
an
they
Etch-a-Sketch, they're like,
like an
move up,
Etch-a-Sketch.
move right.
It's like frame 1, position, okay, cool, hit keyframe. Let's go to frame 10, position, hit keyframe, and then it tweens between those.
Dang.
Which is honestly a really smooth and fast way to input values into a computer, especially for
Sure,
ships, because ships don't do any animating. They just move through space and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, all you need is positional information. So that's what they get, you know, a vector preview, a wireframe preview.
Which at least gives the artist an impression of the motion of the shot.
Which is most important at the end of the day. So there's one other thing, guys. One other thing happening in the sequence that's also a world first. See if you can spot it.
Is it them in the cockpit with the space outside?
This is the first ever shot in a blue screen CG background replacement I've ever seen in a movie. Nice job.
Yeah.
You compare this to now, obviously it doesn't hold up traditionally, but it is so much better than it has any right to be.
This is definitely on par with, if not better than, like somebody's like Blender project, like a year into learning Blender still. Which, considering like nothing existed.
Nothing existed.
Like, was it Carl Sagan's quote? Like, to make an apple pie, you must first invent the universe. Like, that's what's happening here.
That is perfect.
Here's a really interesting story. So this company, Digital Productions, in 1978, they made a demo for ILM of the first ever 3D X-Wings.
No! You haven't?
Yes. And they made a move that you specifically couldn't do with motion control, where an X-Wing in front does a loop and arrives behind the group of other X-Wings. And when they first showed the X-Wing render to George Lucas, he's like, that's not my ship. Star Wars ships are broken, they're rusty, they're battle scarred, they're oily. That's a weird, clean CG rendering. That's not my ship. And that's when they went back like, okay, let's figure out how to add scorch marks and burns and things like that to the ships. There's their sick-ass rendering of a 60,000 polygon X-Wing.
In 1978?
60,000 polygons.
Inputted by hand.
I have goosebumps. God, this is legitimately blowing my mind. I had no idea.
I didn't
about
either.
this.
I didn't know this existed, but like they showed it to Dennis Muir and he's like, this would be impossible to program into a motion control machine. I would never be able to get these moves with a model. This is one of those things, like they did it and then like ILM was like, this is cool. We'll see where it's at in the future.
This honestly is changing my perspective on the history of CGI as we watch this.
It was this like ethos of like, hey, everybody's using miniatures. We can do it in CGI, theoretically. We know we can make it look good. We know we can make it look realistic. We have the guys who are doing the coding. We know we can do it if somebody just gives us the chance. So they got the chance with Last Starfighter, and that was the first time.
Oh, this is that team.
This is that team, exact same group of people. So Last Starfighter is them going, okay, let's actually do it. Let's show everybody, let's show the Star Wars fans, you can do 3D ships, because we can make them look photoreal. And this is what they had. And it looks great, it doesn't quite hold up.
Yeah,
It doesn't
but
quite hold up.
What a flex. Like, what an awesome introductory showcase.
Take a deep breath.
People have requested Jumper for a while now, and I've actually hesitated doing it for the longest time because it's like teleporting visual effects. What's so exciting about it? Well, it turns out if you want to make it interesting, they had to do some cool stuff for it.
Did you think you were the only one?
So they're in the Colosseum in Rome. Iconic location.
We need to find a quiet place to talk in Italy. Here, meet me at the Colosseum. Nobody will be there.
But notice these camera moves.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa. Teleports are interesting because like they're almost like instant, like a frame long, but there's still like subtle things happening in it.
They actually shot in the Colosseum.
Really?
They did.
So they did two things. One, they had like a 2-hour window in the morning to shoot in the Colosseum before they opened it up for tourism and everyone to come in.
2-hour window. Can you imagine the pressure? Like, there's that big of a production trying to move. It's like turning a cruise ship. And they're like, all right, we got 2 hours. What do you get? Okay, we can get this line of dialogue.
Is it worth it? Like, does the audience really care that it's in the Colosseum to that extent? Or are you just trying to like flex as like a producer at that point?
Hello, boys.
So like a shot like this, that's the Colosseum.
That's sick.
These days it's like, okay, get a 3D scan of the Colosseum and we'll just replace all the backgrounds in CG because the director has to have this be in the Colosseum, so that's our job. Back then though, you couldn't really quite do that. So what would they do instead?
I mean, I would imagine they would get one of those giant LiDAR scanners out there and just literally scan the entire grounds for those larger moving shots. Is that not what they did?
No, they just rebuilt the Colosseum.
They rebuilt the Colosseum? Yeah. What do you mean?
They, on a soundstage, recreated the entirety of the interior area. So this whole fight sequence is happening on a soundstage. But the background, where you actually see like the upper stage there, that's all added in post.
Wow.
Oh, cool. That's a great idea.
The majority of this whole sequence is actually taking weeks to film. And just here and there, they inserted a little moment of like Hayden Christensen looking over a balcony up at the Colosseum.
So they used those 2 hours to just get the basically like the cursory footage that would help staple together what they're doing on a soundstage.
Yeah. That shot right there, that's Jamie Bell on the right, and then up there, all in the same shot. They're not really doing digi-doubles either. So they actually have multiple stunt guys who look just like them, and they have dots on their faces, and they're doing face replacements.
Welcome to the war.
It seems like they're blasting him in the face with an air cannon right before he teleports and taking the one frame where his hair goes whoop and he flips back. So instead there with the air cannon.
No, dude, there's 6 PAs going. Because that's the thing, when you think about teleporting, it's like, oh, just delete them. It doesn't look good. It's gotta do something.
There's a lot of power in a single frame. If you want something to be kinetic, don't just do a hard cut. Add 1 extra frame of something happening, but not really much more than that. Maybe 2 frames?
I've always believed that 1 frame is enough to register.
Yeah, there's something magical about 24 frames per second. Like, we could have movies at any frame rate we want to. 24 frames per second is a magical amount of frames per second where we see the motion, but we see every individual frame. Once you get to 30 frames per second, it gets really hard for the average human to pick up an individual frame. At 24 frames per second, you see that muzzle flash that's there for 1 frame. And as an artist, you have a lot of power with that 1 frame to do something, like in Jumper, and you get that 1 frame of like just the wisp being there, or the hair flipping up.
This is a movie where the effects are done very well. It's just the thing that kind of lets this movie down a little bit is the story, and I think that's ultimately why this movie never really got a true sequel. The jumper effect was one of the very first visual effects I ever did.
The jumper effect!
15 years ago,
15 years ago, Ren.
It's been a pleasure making all these videos for you. Look forward to making many more. See you guys again next Saturday.
With Harry Potter React 2.
Can we please?
Promise.
This time, we're serious.
All right, that's our promise. Bye.